Everybody, thank you for joining the ACA Small Business Bootcamp and Resource Collective for this Tuesday, February 16th. I'm Robert Theobald, the Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services here at the Arizona Commerce Authority. We want to first start by thanking everyone that helps with these boot camps. We have a bunch of community partners, over 100 of them that have helped put together boot camp sessions over the past 41 weeks. We're very thankful for their time and their effort and their expertise. We appreciate them very much. You can see there's quite a few businesses on here that have helped with these boot camps, and we are very grateful. So the Small Business Bootcamp and Resource Collective is designed to help small businesses work through the COVID crisis and return stronger than ever. It is a statewide initiative supported by all of our community partners, and it is a boot camp and a resource collective, and we'll talk about both those here. The boot camp itself is a bi-weekly webinar series, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9 a.m. And you can register for those on our website. Most of you, when you registered, went to that website to find the link to register for today's sessions and possibly Thursday's session. And also on that website, we have a link to our resource collective and to all the previous boot camp sessions. We have over 115 boot camp sessions that we've done, and they're all recorded and available for you to review on the archive section of the website. The Resource Collective is a great web page as well. On this site, you can find all the tools and resources provided by our community partners to help small businesses work through the COVID crisis and return stronger. This is just a sample of some of those resources that are available, a number of different guides and tools for every different category of business, from construction and manufacturing to restaurants and retail and barbershops and cosmetologists. There's some safety and other things. So it's a great tool, great resource to access. We also want to share some updates. There's lots of updates that come and go, and we want to make sure that everybody's aware of some of these programs that are out there for small businesses. First, we have the SBA Emerging Leaders Program. There's 2 links on there. We'll post all these links in the chat box, by the way, so you don't have to scramble to write them down. But the SBA Emerging Leaders Program is getting ready to start. The applications are being accepted right now for that. The first link gives information about the program, and then the second link is the actual application site for it. Additionally, starting today, I think it's just today and tomorrow, is the applications for the FedEx Small Business Grant Contest, and that is a nationwide program. But would definitely like to see some Arizona businesses winning that contest. Additionally, if you're still thinking about a first or second draw PPP, we have the link for the lender list provided by the SBA Arizona District Office. And then the final link on there is for the SBA COVID relief options. This is where you have the EIDL, PPP, debt relief, shuttered venue grant information. This is their homepage. They constantly update those websites as they have new information. So it's a great web page to have favorited if you go to them a lot. Also, another way to stay informed is to utilize our COVID-19 Arizona Business Resources website. And on this website, you can find all the current information and business resources and items related to COVID-19, including links to the bootcamp. You can access that at azcommerce.com/COVID-19. Additionally, the ACA has a number of programs that can help support small businesses. We have our small business services, and we can help work with the SBA, work with the small business development centers, SCORE, and other no-cost business counseling programs that are available. We can help direct you to different local banking contacts or local lenders to help with micro loans, PPP loans, etc. Additionally, our workforce division has programs if you're looking to hire employees as your business starts to grow. They have programs for that, and they also have programs for upskilling your employees. So they have a number of great pieces that can help small businesses. And then our Arizona MEP, our Manufacturing Extension Partnership, is a program that helps work with manufacturers throughout the state to help them grow fulfill and achieve their goals. They're a great program, nationally recognized as well. Additionally, a lot of people are looking to start their own business or start side gigs, and we have our small business checklist. This checklist program is designed to help people looking to start their business understand the licensing, registration, compliance challenges and needs at the local, state, and federal levels as you're starting your business. It is an online interactive program, very easy to use with a lot of great information. You can find that at azcommerce.com/smallbiz, and that will link you to it. And then finally, the last resource we want to mention as far as websites is the state's COVID-19 information and resource page, arizonatogether.org. You can find all the latest COVID-19 related information at that site. So as we look at the boot camp for this week, we've got two really good sessions. I'm really excited about these sessions this week. Today we have how to increase your profitability of success, your probability of success tenfold with Brett Gilliland from Elite Entrepreneurs. We're excited to have him back with us. And then on Thursday, we have leveraging videos on social media to strengthen your business with Taylor Wellman. And she's been on with us before, and she does a great job sharing how to utilize videos to help your business success. So with that, we're going to go ahead and turn the time over to Brett. Brett's been with us before, and he does a great job, and we're excited about today's session. So Brett, it is all yours. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and let you pull up your information.
All right. You can hear me okay, Robert?
Yep. Sounds great.
All right. I'm going to share my screen. While I'm doing that, I know the chat works because Lisa's been putting great links in there. Every time I come and visit this boot camp series, I'm completely blown away by the number of resources available through the ACA. I love what they're doing to support small business, and I'm excited to be here with all of you today. If you all don't mind helping me feel a little bit of connection with you in a virtual setting like this, why don't you just throw in the chat where you're dialing in from today? That would help me get a sense for where you're at. Maybe something about your business. I'd love to get to know you a little bit. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to wait for some of those chats to pour in while I get this rolling here, and just really look forward to spending time with all of you today. I see some of those chats coming in. Thank you for those of you who are participating that way. It's fun to have some interaction. So my parents live in Lakeside, Jason. We get up there when we can. Nice to have you here. Peoria, Phoenix, Peoria. I see all of you coming in. Mojave Community College. Thank you, Nadina, for being here. Awesome. Tucson. Great. All over the state. So I'm going to share something with you that I think is going to be of use to you. I'm in Gilbert, so great to have you here, Bill, here in Gilbert. I'm calling this how to 10x your probability of success. And if that sounds like some marketing spiel, I apologize, but literally what I'm going to share with you today is behavioral science that will increase your probability of success at least 10 times. This isn't marketing hype. It's the real thing. So it is a little bit of geek speak, a little bit. I'll try to make it as real as possible. I'm a behavioral scientist. My background is organizational behavior. It's kind of the study of how people behave in organizations and how that system of an organization produces results. And if we want different results, we gotta learn how to think about and manage these systems that involve people. So today we're going to get very behavioral, but it will improve the probability of your success 10 times if you can take the lessons that I'm going to share with you today. So we're going to do this with a little bit of a story. As Robert mentioned, I'm with Elite Entrepreneurs. I grew up here in Arizona. Anybody here grow up in or live in Glendale? That's where I grew up, near 67th Avenue and Bethany Home Road. Okay, if you kind of know where that is in the valley, that's where I grew up. So I'm born and raised here. I'm not a transplant. I'm only saying that because I absolutely love Arizona, and I'm part of this series because I want to give back. I want to help businesses in Arizona thrive. So that's a little bit about me. Here's a little bit more about me, story time, but this is about what we're doing today. So less about me for the sake of me, more about what we're talking about. So the date was December 6th. Sorry, I almost got that wrong. December 6th, 2020. So only a couple months ago, I had put on a little bit of weight during COVID. Can anybody relate to that? If you could like raise your hand or put a 1 in the chat if you might have put on a few pounds during COVID that you didn't want. So that had happened for me. I put on a little bit of weight. Thank you. I won't even call out your name, but thank you for participating in the chat. Awesome. I put on a little weight. Now, if you have now or ever have had a 12-year-old daughter, okay? I have a 12-year-old daughter. Her name is Emily. If you can relate to having a 12-year-old daughter at any point in time, could you go ahead and let me know? Just put a 1 in the chat or put yes or something like that. I'd love to know if you also, again, thank you. All right, a couple of you have had 12-year-old daughters. So my 12-year-old daughter comes up to me. It's December 6th, 2020. Emily puts her arms around me. We have several children. She's our most like physically loving by far. She always hugging. So she comes, gives me a big hug, and she's a little short for her age. So her head kind of hits me right at the midsection, my stomach, between my stomach and my chest. So she would be one of the first to notice that I put on a few pounds. All right, let's just put it that way. So she gives me a hug. She notices I'm a little softer there than I usually am. She like wiggles my stomach a little bit and says something about how jiggly it is. And then she says, if you were to lose 10 pounds by Christmas, I would pay you $10. She kind of jokingly said this. She offers me $10 to lose 10 pounds by Christmas. Now, I mentioned that it was December 6th. So this is 19 days away, 10 pounds in 19 days. But what she doesn't know is that she just unlocked the power for me to do that. She increased my probability of success by more than 10 times. And by the end of our time together today, you'll know why she did, okay? And I'll share the rest of the story. We'll do a little Paul Harvey on that later. For those of you who remember Paul Harvey, we'll do the rest of the story a little bit later in my presentation. Okay, 80% of exercise or diet New Year's resolutions failed by the second week in February. Okay, now I won't ask for a raise of hands if any of you had anything like this as a New Year's resolution this year, but you could see in the red, a lot of common things we like to do as people is at the beginning of the year, we think about making changes, making improvements in our life. And so we do this New Year's resolutions. Well, it's February 16th, so it's the second week in February. So you may have already experienced this, but they did a study and 80% of exercise and diet related New Year's resolutions failed by the second week in February. Why does that happen? To me, there's my one word slide of the day. Yikes. I cringe when I think that is what's going on. So what can we do about it? Well, I told you I geek out a little bit on behavioral science. Well, there's two classic questions about new behavior. Like if you want somebody to do something, think about your 12-year-old daughter or your 12-year-old son. Maybe they're doing things that you wish they would do differently, or maybe you wish they didn't do certain things and you want to change their behavior. Well, the two classic questions when we want to change behavior are, do they want to do it? That's the first one. It's always, do they want to? Do they have the desire? Do they have the motivation, right? Do they really want it? And the second one, you won't be surprised, is do they know how to do it? So do they want to do it? Do they know how to do it? Put simply, in other words, do they have the will and do they have the skill? That's the shorthand for it, all right? So that's probably not news to any of you. Do they have the will? Do they have the skill? In fact, we're bombarded by this message every day, if we realize it or not, okay? So here's a quote by a lady named Cassie Ho. She said, if you want it bad enough, you'll find a way to make it happen. All right, you can find quotes like this on Pinterest, on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, some version of, if you want it bad enough, then you'll actually do it, right? We're entrepreneurs, we're business owners. We wanted it so bad, we made it happen. And so we attribute a lot of power to this desire, this want. So that's common out there in our world. Okay, here's the other one. Book recommendations for New Year's resolutions. Our reading list for every goal you set. So this is from Forbes last year, January of 2020, right? When people set New Year's resolutions last year, they said, here's where you need to go to learn how to do the thing that you've set a goal with. So there's that skill thing, right? Will and skill. Now, if I were to ask you right now to pull up the chat, in fact, I'm going to do that. Pull up the chat. Let me know which one of those do you think is the more powerful reason for success in behavior change? Is it will or is it skill? What do you guys think? Okay, thank you for those of you who are chiming in. Love seeing those answers come in. Will or skill? Will. I see people, you guys are like the classic entrepreneurs, right? It's like, you just got to want it bad enough. Then you can do, we'll figure it out later. It's the will. All right. Well, I'm actually here to tell you that they're both important sources of influence, and I don't have a study to tell you which one is more important. But I love to hear your opinion. It's that want. It's that like pure desire. Like if I want it bad enough, I'll make it happen. All right. Whether you think it's will or skill, can we all agree if you want a different outcome, then you have to do something different? Okay, I know that's earth-shattering here. You heard it here, folks. If you want a different outcome, you have to do something different. It's just true. I like Brandon. Brandon, your response, will then skill, right? It's like both. Okay, I think we're all in agreement on this. So here's the challenge. We all want this. So somebody wanted behavior change in this picture really badly. And I know the quality of it isn't super high, but if you could see here, somebody's trying to stop behavior from going through this spot without some sort of checkpoint. There's one of those, those little bars across there. And I don't know if you have to pay a ticket or flash a badge, but what is the behavior showing in this picture? Behavior showing, yeah, nice try on modifying our behavior, right? We're just going to keep moving through there. So that was a little less effective. So did that person want it? Did they have the skill? I guess you could argue they didn't have the skill because they didn't prevent people from stopping. They clearly wanted change and they did something they thought was beneficial, but the behavior didn't change. All right, here's a truth that I think you guys will find interesting. I hope that you'll grab onto this with both hands. Okay, a bad system will be a good person every time. So for those 80% of people who had the fitness or diet New Year's resolution at the beginning of the year that by February 16th is now already gone, right? Like it didn't happen, they already failed. What happened? Well, I'm here to tell you that a bad system will be a good person every time. There was good intention. They knew how. Do any of you think that when my daughter told me that I was getting a little soft around the midsection, that I didn't know that already? Do any of you think for a minute, do you believe for a second that I didn't want to already do something about that back in, I don't know, September, maybe? I was like, man, I'm starting to put on a few pounds. I'd like to get rid of those, right? I had the desire and I knew what to do. It's not like I didn't know what to do. I knew exactly what to do, but the system was working against me. Okay, now you might say, well, that sounds like victim mentality, Brett. Why don't you just own it? And I'm all for ownership and I'm all for personal responsibility, but I'm here to tell you and teach you that sometimes the system is working against us and we don't know it. That's what I want to uncover for you today. Okay, so here, what do I mean by the system that's beating us? Well, this system here is the model that we're going to use today to talk about how to 10x the probability of your success. All right, now it's by a group called VitalSmarts. They've written a few books, a couple of them I've listed here to the side. The first one, the one on the top, is called Influencer. Okay, because I'm an organizational behavior guy, that's my favorite book, okay, of the two. Influencer is the power to change anything in a system of people, when there's a group of people involved. Change anything is their personal change model. So I want to lose weight. I want to quit smoking. I want to start a good habit, right? My personal change model, that would be change anything. My organizational change model would be the influencer book. Okay, but this is basically the same model. It is the same model in both. All right, what do you recognize? Do any of you recognize the column headings here in the context of our previous conversation? So what does this look like? Motivation at the top of this column, ability at the top of this column. If you were to write two different words that we've been talking about today, what would you put? Yes, thank you, Fritzy. Will and skill. That's right. So there's our classic will and skill, two levers that we like to pull. What I love about the VitalSmarts folks is that they've said, you know what? That is true. They've got to want it and they got to know how, but it's not that simple. It's more complex than that. There's actually three rows here, three levels of will and skill that we need to take a look at. These are influencers or sources of influence. So there's personal motivation, there's personal ability, there's social motivation, there's social ability, there's structural motivation and structural ability. Now we have 6 sources of influence. And each of those sources of influence play a role in how likely we are to see the desired outcome or behavior. Okay, so personal motivation. Let me introduce each of these boxes to you really quickly. Each of these sources of influence are going to play a role. So personal motivation is about making the undesirable desirable. Okay, have you ever met somebody who is really good at this? Right? If you didn't have the motivation, let's say I didn't really want to lose the weight. Let's say I didn't have any desire whatsoever to lose the weight or to quit smoking or to start exercising or whatever the behavior, right? Like I didn't really want to. There are people who've been put on this planet, I believe, to help make the undesirable desirable. Some of them are really gifted at it, okay? If I were to write, well, why don't you guys type in the chat, is there somebody who's like a motivational speaker or somebody who maybe is not even well known that is in your life that's like, every time I listen to that person, I start moving from undesirable to the direction of desirable in my motivation. Anybody like that for you? I'm not seeing any of the chats come in on that. I'll throw one out there just to trigger your thinking. So Tony Robbins. I mean, if you listen to Tony Robbins and you don't feel like doing something at the end of it, then I don't think you're awake during his talk, right? Like he's so good at it. Fritzy mentioned an organization called Stand to Reason. There we go. They're coming in now. Paul Martinelli, Stephen Covey. Yes. A friend named Shannon. Wonderful. Okay. There are people who are really gifted at this. Some of Gary V, love that one as well. Some people, some of us aren't as gifted at this. Okay. So what can we do to make the undesirable desirable? Or, and by the way, I did see the typo in that. After I put this slide in, I was like, oh, somebody wrote undesirable and derisable or something like that. Anyway, I know it's supposed to say make the undesirable desirable. And before I pointed it out, maybe some of you didn't even realize the typo on that slide, but there is. There are ways to make the undesirable desirable, or in some cases, what is desirable undesirable. Like in the case of addiction, if it's undesirable, if it's desirable, how do we make it undesirable? Anyway, whichever way it is for you, there are ways to do that, and they talk about that in their books. Okay, personal ability. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the personal because I think most of us kind of know where to turn for personal desire and personal ability. But on the personal ability side, it's helping them do better than they can today, right? Like, how do we make them better at their thing? How do we help them surpass their limits? And so that would be classic training or skill development, right? So again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on personal motivation or personal ability. I think you guys have that stuff down. I want to introduce you to these lesser known ones around social motivation and social ability. Now, you guys all know about social motivation, especially those of you who have had or currently have 12-year-old children, because that's the time in life when they start to become super interested. Maybe it's 10, 11 now anymore, but they become super interested in what the peers think, way more than what the parents think, right? So we want to harness the power of peer pressure. if I want my daughter to do something, all I have to do is get her friends to want to do it, right? And then she's going to want to do it. So that's harnessing the power of peer pressure in a concept. Now, what does that look like in a business or in an organization? We can talk more about that later. Social ability is finding strength in numbers. Again, I'm going to draw on a parenting truth in my mind. It takes a village to raise your kids, right? It takes a village. We've all heard that phrase. It takes a village. That's the idea of finding strength in numbers. How do we use the social support system around us to do what we're trying to do? So if we're trying to get kids to go to soccer practice, maybe it's carpooling and getting peers to come to the door and knock on the door and say, hey, it's time to go, right? There's that might be part harnessing the power of peer pressure, but it's also working on it's also finding strength in numbers. Maybe you can't be two places at once, and the only way to get your daughter to soccer practice is for somebody else to take her, so you can take your son to his trumpet practice or trumpet lesson, right? Like, we're all trying to do this together, and finding strength in numbers is social ability. Okay, let me introduce you to structural motivation. Now, you guys know what this is. We do it, but we don't necessarily see it in this context. So this is where accountability systems are. This is where reward systems are. Anything that you build in as structural motivation for the behavior, this is where it lies. Okay, and then the last one, structural ability, is using the environment. It's changing the environment to help the person do the behavior. So this might look like, well, here's an example we'll talk about a little bit later probably, but if I have an exercise goal and I have to turn off my alarm clock at, I don't know, 5:45 in the morning, get myself ready to be at least out in public, get into my car where it feels kind of cold in the mornings in the winter, even in Arizona, right? A little more chilly than we'd like, and drag my bones, drag my sorry self over to the gym to then get on a treadmill and do some exercise. That's a lot of to do to get myself exercising. In fact, in the time it took me to get there and get started, I probably could have done it already if the treadmill were sitting right next to my bed. So I wake up, I get up, I'm on the treadmill, right? That's changing the environment to help me be successful, to enable to enable the action or the activity that we're trying to see in the behavior. So that's changing the environment. Changing the environment. I'm going to teach you a new word called propinquity. Okay, we promised in the promotion for the session today that if nothing else, you'd get a new vocabulary word out of it. Well, this is it. Propinquity. Okay, this is the state of being close to someone or something, or physical proximity. So moving that treadmill from the gym, I didn't actually move the one from the gym, but to my house, that's using propinquity to my advantage. That's changing the environment. But the change in the environment might be physical or visual cues. It might be like a sign that I put up on my mirror in the morning to remind me to do something I want to do. I go to church. Sometimes I'm involved in teaching the kids. And if we're trying to teach the kids, don't forget to say your prayers, we might use a prayer rock. Okay, I don't know if you've ever heard of this. Put a rock on the pillow so that you don't sleep at night without remembering your prayers. Well, that's using the environment. It's changing the environment to help them. All right, so that's the idea of structural ability. So this model is the key to you 10xing, more than 10xing the probability of your success in any outcome you want, because every single outcome you want requires behavior. And if you want to increase the chances of you successfully adopting the behavior or others adopting behavior, then you have to use these sources of influence. Now, I need to teach you about a concept called vital behaviors before we can go any further. All right. I started this off with a story about me wanting to lose some weight. So I'm going to stick with that for vital behaviors example. Vital behaviors for losing weight. They did a study, and for people who lost at least 25 pounds, it might have been 30, and kept it off for at least 5 years. So a fair amount of weight for at least 5 years. They did some studies. What did they have in common? What were the vital behaviors for those people to lose and keep the weight off. Okay, I don't know if any of these will surprise you. The first one was to weigh yourself every day. That's what these people did. Weigh yourself every day. The second one was eat breakfast. And I know that might be contrary to popular belief or certain diets or approaches to weight loss, but this is what the study concluded. If you wanted to lose at least this, 25, 30 pounds and keep it off for at least 30 years, or excuse me, at least 5 years, these were the vital behaviors. The last one was exercise at home. Not the scenario that I talked about where you have to get yourself presentable, get yourself into the cold vehicle, drive over to the gym, walk in, get started, like skip all of that, exercise at home. These were the 3 vital behaviors. Okay, now these might not be the things, let me say this a different way. There may be other key success factors to you being able to accomplish what you're trying to do. But these are the ones that if you do them, the end result will happen. So let's bring this into a business context now. If I want to get a sales activity or a sales goal of some sort, let's say I need 10 sales a month. I need to understand what the vital behaviors look like for us to get 10 sales a month. Then I can use the sources of influence that I introduced to you on those vital behaviors. Okay? So let's walk through that a little bit further. So what would the vital behaviors look like if I want 10 sales a month? Well, it might look like a number of dials every day. It might mean if I do 50 dials a day, I will get that's one of the vital behaviors that significantly increases my chances of getting the 10 sales a month. If I do, maybe for you, the vital behavior is number of proposals submitted. If I submit 2 proposals a week, I will get, over time, I will get those 10 sales a month, right? Maybe it's if I sit down and start doing my calls by 8 a.m. every morning. Maybe that's the vital behavior. I don't know in every case what vital behaviors lead to your successful outcomes. That's the investigative work you have to do. But once you know, hey, these few key behaviors are the things that get me the result, then we're going to apply these sources of influence, okay? Then we're going to look at our personal motivation to do each of those vital behaviors. And we're going to make sure that our personal motivation is there. Then we're going to look at our personal ability against each of those vital behaviors. Do I know how to weigh myself every day? Okay, yes or no. If I don't, then we teach, right? Then there's some skill development. So I'm going to go right back to this. Do I want to weigh myself every day? Do I want to do that? Do I know how to do that? Well, that's only 2 of the sources of influence. How would I do some of these other ones? Well, harnessing the power of peer pressure. I might enroll my significant other, my spouse, or my kids. I might enroll them to ask me if I have weighed myself that day. All right. Or maybe I invite them to come have a weigh-in party every day at a certain time. We're all going to weigh in together. There's peer pressure. Or maybe that's partly finding strength in numbers, right? Sometimes it's getting somebody to push you to do it. That's the peer pressure. And the other times it's enabling you to do it. Maybe the strength in numbers is that my daughter, Emily, brings the scale to me at dinner time every day. Like maybe I pay her to do that because I need help. She brings me the scale every day to weigh myself. And that's how I would find strength in numbers. On the sales front, right? If I want the number of sales, do I want to do the activity of 50 dials a day? How could I make that more desirable if I don't want to do that, right? There's some thought work we might have to do, but there's some personal motivation around the dials. Then do I know how to? Probably know how to. What could I do on the social peer pressure, like harnessing peer pressure around that? Well, maybe I never have one salesperson. Maybe I always have 2 or more salespeople, and I sit them close together. And I know during COVID that's a little different, but let's remember the days when we actually sat together in the office. Maybe we put our salespeople all together so that they could see each other making their dials. They could hear each other talking to people. That would be harnessing the power of peer pressure. Finding strength in numbers might be something like, using an IT person or an IT resource to help your salesperson with an auto dialer, right? Like maybe there's a way to put there's a way to, and that might bleed over into changing the environment, but you can see how some of these overlap. But the point is, how do I enroll other people to help this person be successful with that behavior? And then on the structural side, it's kind of easy with the sales rep because their pay is tied to the result, right? Like if you make the 50 dials a day, maybe there's a spiff at the end of the month for people who average the 50 dials a day, right? Maybe we have some sort of accountability system where every day I have to type in the number of dials that I did that day. So maybe you don't have to reward for it. Maybe you just put a scoreboard to it. That's structural motivation. And then on the structural ability side, maybe go back to the auto dialer example, or maybe we put a little scoreboard right next to the phone so they could see it right next to their dials, or maybe we use a cool CRM system that helps them keep track of those dials so they feel good when they're making those dials. Whatever we do to change the environment, we could put up signs to remind them, hey, don't forget to do your dials, whatever. We change the environment to help them get that done. All right, so that's how we would use the model. Now, here's the punchline. I know you guys have been waiting for this. Like, tell me more about this 10 times the success. Well, when you employ at least 4 of those 6 sources of influence, you are 10xing, or you are 10x more likely to get the behavior change you want. Okay? Please, I hope if you fell asleep already, because I don't know, maybe you're like, this guy's monotone, or he's boring, or whatever. I hope you're waking up right now. If you use at least 4 of the 6 sources of influence, you are more than 10x more likely to get the behavior change you want. Okay, that's a proven thing. And here's why. Oops, I'm going to go back to this for a second. Most of us already have the motivation personally. Most of us already have the ability personally. I told you about my weight loss thing, right? I'm like, I wanted to lose those extra pounds, and I knew exactly what to do. Most of us know some combination of what goes in my mouth versus how much I exercise, right? Like this is really simple stuff. I knew exactly what to do. Why wasn't I succeeding? Well, I wasn't harnessing the power of peer pressure. In fact, the peer pressure in my household was working against me. I have all these teenagers. All they want to do is eat. If I want to be around my kids, feels like I should be eating with them, okay? Because that's all they do. They eat and eat and eat. Finding strength in numbers. They weren't enabling me through, finding strength in numbers. They're saying, hey, Dad, you want a donut? Hey, Dad, you want one of these candies? Hey, Dad, let's go get some ice cream, right? Like there was a lot of social motivation and social ability in the wrong direction. On the structural side, I didn't put any rewards or accountability in place. I was only accountable to myself. I didn't do anything. All right, I was just telling myself I'll do it later. Right? How many of you have done that? I want to do something, but you procrastinate it. You just say, I'll do it later. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. And I hadn't done anything in the environment different. So when you get 4 or more of these in your favor, literally, it's kind of like a tug of war, where you and 1 or 2 of these sources of influence are fighting against the other ones. They're working against you. And when you enroll them, when you recruit them to be on your side, then you overwhelm any other source of influence, and the behavior happens. Okay, it's like adding length to your lever, right? If the 2 levers are motivation and ability to get this done, and you add sources of influence, your lever's getting longer, right? I think it was Archimedes say, if you give me I don't know if he said a fulcrum and a long enough lever, I could move the world, something like that. Somebody in the chat could probably help me on this. Anyway, if you get enough of this going, you can move mountains. You can even move some really stingy and persistent behaviors. All right, so back to my story. What was the difference? I told you, the moment my daughter said, hey, I'll give you $10 if you lose 10 pounds by Christmas on December 6th, 19 days away, I knew it was as good as done. Why did I know that? Well, I already had the personal will. I had the personal motivation. I had wanted to lose that weight for months. I had the personal ability. I knew exactly what I was doing, right? Like I knew what to do. My daughter offered me a reward. Now, truth be told, I could care less about $10. The real reward for me was kind of rubbing it in my daughter's face and going, hey, I told you I could do it, right? It was really the reward of proving her wrong. And the $10 is nice. But then the other thing that I did, I didn't tell you this. The other thing that I did was after she mentioned that to me, I ran around the house and I told everybody else. I said, hey, Emily's going to give me $10 on Christmas morning because I'm going to lose 10 pounds by then. And so I enrolled more people. I had more peer pressure going. So I had peer pressure going. I had a reward, and I already had the personal motivation and the personal skill. So I lined up with Emily's help. Emily lined up 4 sources of influence, and I knew in that moment that the scales tipped in my favor from unlikely to inevitable. It had taken me months to be thinking to myself, oh yeah, I want to lose some weight. Oh yeah, I know what to do. I'll do it later, right? Like the accountability wasn't there. There was no peer pressure. There was no structure in my favor. None of the other sources were in my favor. They were all pulling against me. And as soon as she invited me to have a little peer pressure from her, a little bit of accountability, or excuse me, a reward system, and then I went and made myself accountable and more peer pressure with the rest of the family, I knew that that was inevitable. And if for any of you wondering if I actually did it, yes. I know it was only 19 days, but like I wasn't not going to do that. And so I got rid of the 10 pounds and I got the $10 and I got to go, hey, Emily, I did it, right? So this stuff is really powerful. It can take really persistent behaviors and flip it around completely. But it just takes having enough of these sources of influence working in your favor to make it happen. All right. So again, I had the greens already. These things were not a question. Emily brought these other 2 into my favor, and maybe this other finding strength in numbers. I don't know. But these other 2, she brought them right into play, and it was like, boom, that is going to happen. And it did. All right. Here are the key takeaways. And we'll go into a little bit of Q&A. We'll have about 5 minutes for Q&A. You must change behavior to get different outcomes. There's no way around that. If you want a different outcome, you have to do something different. And I know that's really hard for us as entrepreneurs. Sometimes we're like, let's just do more of the same. Okay, like this got me here. I might be hitting a revenue ceiling. I might be stuck in my growth. And I'm like, I'm just going to pedal harder because I'm an entrepreneur. I have grit. I have tenacity. I have willpower, right? I'm just going to go harder. And we go harder until we start to burn out, or we start to see it going harder is not doing it. We actually got to change the system. We got to change something to make the different outcome. Okay, the next idea is that we have to identify the vital behaviors. It does nothing if we aim the sources of influence at the goal. If the goal is 10 sales, don't aim the 6 sources of influence at the sales number. Figure out what gets those sales. Is it being in your seat at 8 a.m. every day? Is it making your first dial at 8:01 every day? Is it making 50 dials every day? Is it submitting a number of proposals? Is it spending time on LinkedIn or Facebook? I don't know for your business, for your specific situation, what your vital behaviors are. You have to identify the 2 or 3, maybe there's only 1 key vital behavior, but if you're missing one, you're not going to get the outcome, right? So you got to get the core set of vital behaviors, and then we're going to turn to this model of the 6 sources of influence. We're going to think through all 6 of them, and then we're going to employ at least 4 of the 6. And I say at least because that gives you the 10x probability of success, but all 6 even better, right? So don't settle for 4. If you can align all 6 sources of influence on those vital behaviors, you're going to blow it out of the water. It will happen. It goes from unlikely to inevitable every time that you line up these sources of influence, enough of them. 3 doesn't cut it. 2 doesn't cut it. 1, not enough. You need at least 4, preferably all 6. All right, so that's it. Have fun changing yourself, your business, and the world. Now that you've got this mind-blowing knowledge about vital behaviors from the folks at VitalSmarts, go out and do it. We have some time for Q&A. before I forget, Robert, let me just throw this up here. My business is called Elite Entrepreneurs. Our website is called growwithelite.com. Okay, so you can just go to growwithelite.com. We have an elite business growth method. There's a free ebook. You guys can have it, but you just have to opt in for it. But we specialize in helping 7-figure business owners who are getting stuck. They hit a ceiling. Things are challenging. They know they got to do something different. They don't know what. We know exactly what. That 1 million to 10 million journey, we're expert at that and can help any of you who are trying to do that journey make the changes that you need to make to get there. Okay, Q&A time. I see a question, it looks like. Do you have any suggestions for identifying vital behaviors for business goals? Great question, Tracy. Thank you for that. Here's what I would say. Let me put it in different terms that you guys are familiar with. We all know these terms. So we talk about KPIs, right? Key performance indicators or key results. Those are the business goals, right? So those are the business goals. Sometimes we measure those KPIs in lagging measures. You've heard lagging versus leading indicators, lagging results or lagging measures versus leading indicators. What you want are the leading indicators. Is this the one that you wanted, Brandon? I see your question about the third to last slide. Hopefully this is the one you wanted. If not, just let me know and I'll move it. So Tracy, we want leading indicators. That's the same idea as vital behaviors. What activities do we know lead to the outcome? And all you have to do is study what it looks like to get the outcome. So if you've never gotten the outcome you want, don't study your own behaviors, right? Go learn from somebody else who gets those outcomes. What do their behaviors look like? Pro athletes do this all the time, right? They study film, they study themselves, they watch every motion, they learn they learn the behaviors that get the outcome, and then they practice those behaviors like crazy. So you kind of have to be a student of behavior to figure it out. But I'm guessing most of you know what it looks like to get the outcome. And if you don't, then it's just time to study it. Study it like you would a science project or, you know, some observation thing where you just watch it a lot until you figure out and test it. You can test it. You can say, oh, well, I think it's A, B, and C. All right, do A, B, and C for a period of time. If it doesn't get you the outcome, then you know that those weren't the vital behaviors. Great question. What else do we have coming in for questions?
One note I'll make, we had a question, is the slide deck will be available on the website later today with the recording. So if you want to go back and review those slides, they will be available to you.
Great. And I see Julianne asked a question about, is this info in the ebook? No, I'm not trying to point you to the, you know, get this to move you to the ebook. The ebook is our elite business growth method, and it's specific to the business building work that you have to do to overcome the ceiling that most businesses hit around $1 million. Sometimes they push it into $2 million, but they're like, it's not working. I don't know how to go any further. And they usually recede back to a more comfortable place that's a little less challenging. And I don't want that for any of you guys. I'd love to see you guys keep moving forward. The elite business growth method can help you with that. All right, Jason, thank you for your comment. Appreciate that. Any other questions today, guys? There's something in the Q&A. Where to get the link for the replay? I think Robert and team send that out, or do you just post it on the site?
Yeah, it's posted on the site. Lisa posted the link to the bootcamp website. It'll be under that, so it's on that main page.
All right, perfect.
So.
Any other questions? I could tell some of you are already starting to think about the you know, what are the vital behaviors? How can I find them out? We have a good question here in the question. It says, when to use negative versus positive reinforcement and behavioral modification? Negative versus positive. So I would lean towards the positive anytime that I could. In fact, that would be my default answer, right? Is the positive. Anytime we're dealing with people, I mean, look at how you like to be dealt with for yourself. Most of us like the positive reinforcement. Sometimes I will put a little negative reinforcement in my own in my own behavior change. So for example, if I fail to do these things, then I don't get to watch my favorite show, or I don't get to have that treat that I like to have, right? So I might motivate myself by taking something away from myself. But that wouldn't be a primary motivator. That would just be one of the 6 sources. It would just be one of the things. So I'm just trying to stack the odds in my favor.
Excellent. Brett, we're getting close to that time. We got to cut off. We have to end a little bit early today. But this has been a great session. You know, you provided great information that's not only going to help our businesses out there throughout the state, but, you know, we can apply this in our personal lives as well, and various things. So I really enjoyed this session. I appreciate you bringing this to us. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. It was fun.
Again, we've got these key takeaways on the screen, so you guys can review them, and this will be listed, so you can go back and review it if you want in the slide deck. So Brett, thank you. Thank you everybody for joining us today. I hope you can take these things and apply them in your business and see a 10x improvement. We're excited to see that. We want to remind everybody about Thursday session, 9 a.m. Please join us for that. Until then, again, we're excited to have you here. We hope to see you on Thursday. So have a great day. Enjoy Tuesday and Wednesday, and we will see you on Thursday morning. Thanks.